Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Hello. Wait a minute. How come I'm not there? Now I'm big. All right. Man, you would think that somehow I would learn how to do this. Oh, well, what fun would that be if everything went as planned? I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm lucky I remembered to put myself into the studio while the music was playing. Anyway, let's see here. Before we get started today, I do want to give a shout out, special shout out, as always, to my friend out here in the chat with us, Steve at Harnal Media. I know a lot of folks think that I'm just doing a commercial for Steve, and you're right, but I do so voluntarily. Steve hasn't asked me to do any of this stuff. Um, I just believe in him and I believe what he does, and I still don't know how he does it all. Uh, Harnal Media is a family-run business, and when I say family, I mean Steve. That's part of the appeal of Harnal Media to me is when you deal with Harnal Media, you're talking to Steve, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center offshore somewhere that you'll never talk to again. We're all in this together, and Steve is a team player kind of guy. He is fantastic at what he does. If you're looking to establish or improve your web presence, there's absolutely no better way to do it than with a website. And it does two things. Number one, it gets your products and services out in front of the masses without a middleman or a third party taking their little piece of the pie with every sale. And two, it gives you legitimacy. There are a lot of affiliate programs and sponsorship deals out there that may come your way. A lot of them require you to have a website. And if you go with Harnal Media, you just simply cannot go wrong. A few of our friends out here in the chat can sing Steve's praises as well. Um, you owe it to yourself to head over to harnalmedia.com, hit that contact us button, and shoot a message to Steve. He will take care of you. You're looking for an e-commerce site. You want to set up a web store. Maybe you have a logo. You want to design some merch. He can hook you up with a print on demand company that'll take care of all the inventory, all the collections, all of the state sales taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And they will ship worldwide. So you can put your merch into the hands of somebody in Australia, or if you're in Australia, you can put it in the hands of somebody here in the States, in the UK, Canada, wherever. So you owe it to yourself to check out Steve's services over at Harnal Media. And there's a link in to Harnal Media in every video on this channel. And it's that way for a reason. Steve, thank you for what you do. And peace to you, brother. Okay. Shock of all shocks. And I mean, seriously, shock, cough, choke, faint, die. I finally got that tiled Toolpath project done. It's been long overdue. It's been a 10-month wait. Nobody is more surprised than I am, except maybe one person, one of my channel members, Steve. We've been kind of teasing um, behind the scenes a little bit here about how he needs to get his cardiologist on speed dial because we're going to give him a heart attack. And I got to tell you, it was a fun project. It was an easier project than I thought it was going to be. I've done one other uh, tiling toolpath project. Just kind of, I cheated in that it would have fit within the cutting envelope of my machine. I just tiled it so I could say that I had tiled it and get a little bit of experience. And then I promptly complicated matters by adding a sled into the process. And as you saw in the video, I first had to deal with the sled. Then I could mount the material to the sled
and register off of that. And it worked out just fine. It is a lot more intimidating than it looks, but most things are. But once you get into it, that light bulb moment will happen. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. I see what's going on. The important things to remember are you have to have a way of repeatably aligning that piece of material with the axis that you're passing through on. So if you're passing through on the y-axis like I did, you have to have some sort of a guide along the side that you can register the side of that project up against to keep it straight and parallel with that axis. Because if it's off just a little bit, it's going to be the entire carve is going to be off. If you're tiling along the X, you need a way of registering that and keeping it parallel with that X axis. And then use your guide pins, your guide dowels. I use precision ground steel dowels. You don't have to use those. You can use a hardwood dowel. I mean, I cheat like a son of a gun sometimes. This dowel here is the handle off of a disposable foam brush. When I'm done staining or whatever, in fact, this one came from when I stained to the back of that project. When I'm done staining or whatever, I snap off the foam part, let that dry and throw it away, and I keep the dowel. I find uses for these things all over the shop, either as spacers or just something to lay 3 or 4 of them down to space something up off a tabletop. Or I'll take a drill bit and drill this hole out to a different diameter, then super glue that drill bit into this and use it as a handle for a reamer to get in and clean out drill holes and what have you. Uh, there's all kinds of uses for these things. But you could certainly drill a hole the size of one of these dowels and use that for your locating pin. The other real important thing is that once you set your XY0, you do not change it because that's what the tiles are registered off of in the software. So you set your XY0, cut your first tile, then move using your registration dowels. Do not reset your XY0. Load the G code for your second tile, cut it. Now, Norman Peterson had a question. He said, your tiling videos answered a lot of questions. My machine's in an enclosure, so limited on the Y. The machine's on a rolling torsion table, so I can pull it out for unlimited X. How do I drill registration holes in a 10-foot board with a machine X limit of 30 inches? Okay. Um, we'll get into that now. Let me go ahead and bring Aspire into this. And mine is along the X, but you can use your imagination to convert it to Y. Excuse me, mine is on the Y. You can use your imagination to convert it to the X norm. Everything will just be 90 degrees off. Basically, well, I drilled holes in the sled. Now, this is not the file I used. Turns out I don't have it on this computer, and of course, I was not prepared. Um, I put a locating dowel hole on my sled at 3 inches up, and that's where I drilled that hole that went into the spoil board by about quarter inch, half inch, something like that. Then this second hole here was a separate tool path, and it just went through the material. It did not go down into the spoil board. Maybe it touched the spoil board, but it just has to go all the way through that material. Now, if you're doing something 10 feet long and you have a max capacity of 30 inches, all you would do is you would create enough tiles to cover that entire 10-foot piece. And you would do your 2 locating dowel holes, same as this. And again, yours would be an X, so it would be the other direction. Do your locating dowel to go into your spoil board. Then come up and drill this hole and save this one as a separate tool path. Then get your material all mounted and everything just fine. Cut your first tile. Then when you move this down or move this over like you saw me do in the dowel and however you're mounting the material, drill another dowel hole through your material up from where you drilled this one. So you would basically, in essence, what you would do is, let me change this here. We'll redo it. So I will get rid of this one, delete, and I'm going to bring a guide right down to the center of this. Now it's 3 inches up. I'm going to break it down to, let's say 1 foot. So I'm going to right click. I've already got my hole here. I'm fine there. I want to move it. 12 inches up would be 15. So 15 inches, apply. And I close this. That's where the next dowel hole would go. Let me bring a vertical guide over and center it on this one. And now I want to put another one right here. Okay. I can close that. Now I can move this guide up another 12 inches. So that would be what? That would be 27. Okay. And apply, close, and you get the idea. I'm not going to do the whole 6 feet. But you would draw your guide holes for your dowels. You would draw those holes in your project everywhere you're going to need to put one. And then you will have to calculate these tool paths separately because each tile is going to have its own. So tile 1, you would have this one and this hole. Then on tile 2, you would cut tile 2 and drill this hole. Then move it down, tile 3, you'd cut tile 3 and drill the next hole. So you could keep moving it at, in your case, 30-inch intervals, or if 30 is absolute max, you'd want them in from the end, so maybe 24-inch intervals. But you would need to make sure that they're all separate tool paths because each tile will need to cut, the first tile will need to cut these 2, and each tile after that would need to cut the next one in progression. Does that make sense? So it would just be keep stepping it little by little. It would be like climbing a 10-foot ladder, one rung at a time, if that makes any sense. I hope that answered your question. I guess I could have done something similar on the video, but I'm just grateful I had it done. Let's see here. Might be more accurate to copy array the dowel hole itself. Yeah, that's possible. You could certainly do it that way, and just create one. The important thing is not so much how you create them. The important thing is that when you calculate the tool paths, they are separate for each tile. So that way you're not going over your capacity to drill these guide holes. So Um, that however you want to accomplish that is entirely up to you. But did that answer your question, Norman? Um, if not, uh, speak up and I'll go back into it a little bit further. So let's see here. Now, Brooks Martin had a question. If the tiling project is, say, 2 foot by 2 foot for 3D models, can we talk about that? Okay, full disclosure, I have not tiled a 3D project, but it would be no different. You would calculate the toolpath and then tile just the same as you would um, for any other type of a project. Now, I used a 1/4 inch overlap on my project simply because I knew it was going to be in a mainly clear area for um, other than just that one little measurement line. But if you use, say, if you did the same, used a 1/4 inch overlap, I'm assuming either an X or Y or both for that matter. That way the bit comes all the way off the edge of the material and you don't have that cusp where the bit stopped at the edge of the material and you have the radius of the bit right there. So doing a little bit of an overlap would have the piece. I'm assuming that you're talking about two different pieces, uh, but it's tiling in that way is slightly different than just the pass-through tiling. So, can you tile and reverse tile in what way? Oh, okay. If you can only access the machine from one side, had to take out the piece, flip it, and turn it. No, I don't think you can reverse it in that way. It's the now you might be able to do it, but not the way I showed in the other video. And there should be a link to it. I don't know if I put a link to it in the description of this live stream or not. Where'd my notebook go? Oh, my notebook's over here. Geez. Okay. I will double check and make sure. No, it's not just pass through, but it's you can do separate pieces. For instance, if you have a machine that has 30-inch by 30-inch capacity, like Norm had it, and yes, that did answer your question. Okay, thank you, Norm. And you want to do an entire wall, you can break up that entire pattern. You draw out your design and you can break it up into separate tiles and then apply those pieces to the wall in sequence and put them up that way. So you can break up like a full sheet of sign foam. You could cut it up into 2 foot by 2 foot pieces that will fit in your machine, cut each piece separately in each tile. For what you're asking, take it out and remove it and spin it around. I don't know how that would come out. Yeah, I don't think you can do that. Not yet, anyway. Um, Okay, thinking of doing a full 4x8. If I, for instance, because of where my machine is placed, from the back of the machine back there to the wall is 2 feet. So I have a grand total of just a little over 6 feet. When I did this project, um, this end, while I was cutting the first tile, this end was about a quarter of an inch away from the wall. So I just had enough room to do this project. So if I was going to do a 4x8 sheet, um, if I was going to do a 4x8 sheet, I would have to break that up into separate tiles and then cut my material down to a size that the machine could cut and then reassemble it off of the machine. So, and that's what I'm referring to. I would have to do it that way. Okay, Michael Mazalik just confirmed. He said some advanced controllers can do that, but not in the Vectric software. Okay, all right. So, let's see. Rich Bratcher wants to know, Mark, so are you drilling index holes in the X area of your project board? I did not on this project. What I did was I created a sled. Oh, you like that, did you? Hey, Ray Russell, the T-shirt that I wore in that video was sent to me by Ray Russell. And Ray, I owe you an apology because I was going to put a link to your business in that description. And I'm going to make a note of me to do that now. All right. I just wrote myself a note. I'm putting a link to your business in the description of that video. If you want a custom T-shirt, reach out to Ray. He'll handle it. He'll take care of you. But anyway, I did not drill into the project board. I created a um, sled for it and then mounted it to that sled because, as you can see, this is just a plain cedar fence board that I picked up at my local blue big box store. It was like $2. Now, $2.18, I want to say. And stained one side, let it dry. That's part of what took me so long to get to this. That was not the first one I bought. That was the third one I bought. The first two turned into bananas. Luckily, I found one that was rift sawn, and that stayed a lot flatter. I stained one side, forcing it to dry basically through the back or the edges, and it sat here on the sled for 10 months. This particular one sat for about 7 months, and it finally dried. Dried enough to where I could go ahead and carve it and then stain the rest of it. But I created a sled, as you saw in the video, and that's what this is here. This sled is what I was drilling holes in. I did end up drilling one hole in my spoil board for this locating dowel. And when it comes time to surface the spoil board, I'll just glue a hardwood dowel in it, cut it off semi-flush with the surface of the spoil board, and then when I surface it, it'll surface that down as well. So no, what you saw along the front of the spoil board is a series of holes that I drilled. They are known work locations for work offsets. I have two known locations, one right here and the other one about in the middle of the machine bed of the spoil board. And it's a series of holes that run up the that would be the left side of the spoil board parallel with the Y, and then in the center another row of holes running parallel to the Y, and that helps me align things with my Y axis. I put a couple of dowels in there, shove it up against those dowels, mount it down, and I know it's straight. Then I can pull those dowels out of the way and kaboom. So you mounted your project board to a sacrificial sled that you drilled index holes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that was because I didn't want to drill holes in the project board. So, go for something that's a little bit, that's more sacrificial. Um, uh, Brooks, I apologize. Did I answer your question? The 3D tiling a 3D project. I have not done one yet. You've given me an idea. I do want to carve one of those barn stars. I will play with it in the software and see how it previews. And if it turns out okay, maybe I'll do a tile for that, because I don't have any tiling projects I can think of that are that big. I don't live in that big of a house, and we are out of wall space. Okay, Rich. Yeah, most of my carves are on live edge boards. Thanks. Yes, and that's a perfect case. Thank you for bringing that up. That's the perfect case for if you're doing a big, say you're doing a big live edge sign to go up in a lodge or you know wherever, a cabin or something like that. That's the perfect case. Say that slab is 7 feet long and you've got, oh, I don't know, 36 inches of max capacity. You can mount that on a sled and drill all your alignment holes in that sled and not touch that live edge board. That's the perfect opportunity to do that. Or say you want to carve, here's one for you, depending upon how your Z axis, what its capacity is. You could also carve on the front edge of a nice mantle, you know, mount that puppy down nice and tight and then carve along the front edge of that mantelpiece. You need some killer Z height, but hey, yards of wall space behind you. Yes, and a lot of it's already spoken for. I just got to get it done. Let's see here. 8th Center is asking, so your preferred hold down for that is tape and CA. That's my preferred hold down anyway, with a caveat. It's not always the perfect hold down method. You'll notice in the video on the sled, I used composite nails, and somebody was asking me about these composite nails. Um, the number one question I get on these composite nails is, can I use a regular nail gun with them? They are made out of plastic and they are 15 gauge. That's number one. Um, from what I understand, I don't have a nailer that'll take 15 gauge nails other than my composite nailer. But from what I understand, and I don't know if this is true or not, this is hearsay as far as I'm concerned. A standard brad nailer or pin nailer that'll take 15 gauge nails is so strong it hits with such impact it shatters the nails. I don't know if that's true or not. That is, like I said, secondhand information. So, take it with as many grain of salt as you wish. Um, if I didn't have a composite nailer, I would have used screws to hold down the sled. But I've got the composite nailer, I've got the nails, might as well use them. The composite nailer is it comes in real handy and it's real good for sheet goods, but I would not use it on hardwood and solid wood. And mainly because 15 gauge nail is so big. If you're within 4 or 5 inches of the end of a piece of solid wood, it'll split it. I've tried it. I tried it on maple. I tried it on cherry, and I tried it on a piece of walnut, and it will split that wood just, I mean, on impact. It's real good for sheet goods, plywood, MDF, particle board, um, things like that. But for solid wood stock, I go back to either the painter's tape and CA glue or screws. I just glue up an oversized panel or cut the piece oversized and screw it down and then do my profile cut after the carving is done. But to answer your question, it went through the maple, the walnut, and the cherry just fine. It just, the material couldn't handle that big of a nail going through it that close to the end. So, and it leaves a big, hole. So, um, but if you've doing mainly sheet goods, get it down, get it aligned, get it centered, and bap, 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 one in each corner and go. So, yes, screws do pull up the MDF. I agree with you on that. And what I do after the fact, I think everybody should have an old beater wood chisel that they don't care about. I don't open paint cans with it, but I've got this 1/2 inch chisel that I got at a yard sale. I think I paid $1 for it. What's the Buck Brothers? That's the brand. And I just come along and I scrape down where it pulled that MDF up, and it's fine until the next time I surface it. But yeah, it does pull up the MDF. But I don't baby my spoil board. I don't abuse it on purpose, but I don't baby it. And if it gets a hole in it, it gets a hole in it. And when I go around, in fact, I did a video on it. When I decide it's time I need to resurface my spoil board, I go around with a 1/4 inch drill bit in my drill and I drill where I've been driving screws and I glue a piece of 1/4 inch hardwood dowel in it. Then when I surface it, cut it off semi-flush with the surface of the spoil board. Then when I surface the spoil board, it's nice and flat and all those holes are filled. So, let's see here. Don't have any more questions on the tiling. Again, I would say if you're intimidated by it, just try it. Just give it a shot. I mean, these fence boards, like I said, they're about $3. And if you go on, I mean, this is how cheap I am. If you get on your local Craigslist or something similar, Facebook Marketplace, whatever, and look in the free section, you can usually find somebody that's got 5 or 6 of these that they want rid of, or they're going to go to the landfill, and just practice on it. Take a wire brush and scrub any dirt or anything off of it and just go through the process. That's how I learned how to use these machines. I I carved up I can't tell you how many spoil boards because I can't count that high. And it's free. And I do not have a philosophical problem with carving up wood that's headed for the landfill. And you never know. You just might make something you like. Um, my wife has a thing for fence art. And so occasionally I'll make her a little something to hang on the fence to cover knotholes. So the neighbor kids, I don't know what she thinks the neighbor kids are going to peek at in our backyard, but who can tell? So, Eight Center says in the UK we have Free Cycle and Freegal. They're always giving away floorboards, furniture, fence posts, etc. Yeah, it's great material to learn on, and it keeps it out of the landfill. And you can sometimes get some good pieces. I think my favorite achievement on Craigslist in the free section was a guy redid his kitchen. He took down all of his cabinet doors, made new ones. And so he had a whole kitchen full of solid cherry raised panel doors. And you bet I was on that so fast, both of our heads were spinning. You know, you never know what you're going to find. And it keeps that kind of thing out of the landfill, and you can get some good material that way. So, um, okay, it doesn't look like I have any more questions on the tiling. So if anybody has any questions at all about anything, we can talk about it. Brooks Martin says, can you touch on mineral oil finishing? I like tung oil, but I like to avoid the coloring effect it has. Okay. I assume you're talking about the cutting board. Let me see if I can find a picture of that cutting board. Beady, there it is. Now I gotta drag it over. Oh, it's already over there. Okay, nice. And now find you guys again. There it is. All right. It's a chaos pattern cutting board I made for my wife. Um, the finish is mineral oil, and there are differing opinions on it. Um, some people will just absolutely flood the thing with mineral oil on all sides, and you have to if that's the finish you're going to use. It will. Um, you mentioned that you don't like the way the tung oil changes the color of the wood. Mineral oil will do the same. It will darken everything up. Um, as far as woods like canary wood, Paduke, Purple Heart, they will only stay that color as long as they're sealed from oxygen. And mineral oil and wax will not seal it from oxygen. So something like Purple Heart is going to turn brown. Paduke is going to turn brown. Yellow Heart, Canary Wood, things like that, they're going to turn kind of a whitish amber, if that makes any sense. They're not going to stay those true color. And it's just simple oxidization. Um, the only way to prevent that from happening is to completely seal it from oxygen. And you're talking about a film finish like lacquer or urethane or something like that. And I wouldn't do that on a cutting board. So, but the mineral oil, there's a couple of things to watch out with mineral oil as opposed to tung oil. Tung oil has to cure, and the length of time it takes to cure between coats varies by manufacturers. Some will say 3 days, some say up to a week. Um, some will say 12 hours. But tung oil has to cure, solidify enough to where any coats that you apply after that, you're not just soaking more tung oil into it. You're not building up a finish, you're just saturating it. Well, mineral oil doesn't harden, it doesn't cure. The reason for the mineral oil is to, I hesitate to say put moisture into the board, but it's kind of a primer for the beeswax and mineral oil finish that's going to go over it. So it's there are varied opinions on using the mineral oil. You have guys like MTM Wood who he just dunks it in mineral oil for about 10 to 15 seconds. So the entire thing soaks in it for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then he'll take it out of the mineral oil and he puts it up on a rack, lets it drain for about 6 hours. Then he'll dunk it for another 10, 15 seconds, take it out, and then put it in the rack and let it dry overnight. So that's one method. I've seen other people submerge them in mineral oil and leave them there for a half hour. The problem with that, it's been my experience that the more mineral oil you put in there, the more it's going to weep. And because remember, you're talking about end grain. And end grain is basically, imagine a bunch of straws bound together with cellulose uh, in between. Or these are the cellulose fibers, rather. You're talking about lignin and a bunch of other materials in between these uh, straws. You put something up here, it's going to just soak in, and you will literally see, if you soak too much mineral oil in it, you will literally see oil pooling on the bottom and then eventually dripping off. It will flow all the way through. I've seen it. So, yes, you do want to put some oil on it before you use a wax. I tend to go for 5 to 10 seconds. Wipe it on. I don't dunk them. I just wipe it on the top and around the sides, then immediately wipe it down. Wipe off the excess, flip it over, wipe it on the bottom, 5 or 10 seconds, immediately wipe it off. Then I put it up on edge and let it sit for like a week, wiping it down every day. Then I'll do my wax because that oil is going to leak out of there. A certain amount's going to stay, but most of it's going to leak out of there. So that last, depending upon how long how much oil it is soaked up. But the mineral oil I use, I got this, hashtag not sponsor, forget the brand name. It's a pharmaceutical slash food grade um, mineral oil. And this 1 pint bottle, you can see 473 milliliters for those who are on the metric system. I want to say it was about $4, maybe. So you can go crazy with cutting board oils, which are mineral oil. Maybe they've got a little bit of a citrus solvent in there to smell nice. But, that's it. Most of the cutting board, not all, most of the cutting board waxes you're going to find are a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil. They will melt the beeswax, and it's depending upon who you listen to. Some people will go 3 parts beeswax. No, excuse me, 3 parts mineral oil, 1 part beeswax. Some will go 4 parts mineral oil, 1 part beeswax. Personally, I don't goof around with that. I use Howard's Butcher Block conditioner because that's basically what it is. It's mineral oil and beeswax. It's already done. Again, hashtag not sponsored, but hey, Howard's company, have your people call my people. We can do lunch. Um, it is food grade mineral oil. It's beeswax and a couple of other, it's beeswax and carnauba wax. Carnauba is one of the hardest waxes out there. I like it. This stuff works real well. Um, it it gives it a nice luster that can. It's real easy to apply. Rub it on. Let it glaze over just like you're waxing your car. Rub it on. Rub it off. Wax on. Wax off. Do not confuse it with Howard's Feed and Wax. Howard's Feed and Wax, right here on the label, is not intended for food prep surfaces. For food prep surfaces, use Howard's cutting board oil, butcher block conditioner, which is what that is, or wax it all. This has got some other solvents in it. This is fabulous stuff for if you've got an old piece of furniture that you need to clean up, it's kind of lost its luster, or maybe you like to do an annual polish or semi-annual polish. This stuff is good. Oh boy, is it good. I heard a lot about it from a couple of friends, and then I started hearing a lot more about it in the last couple of years. And so I tried some on a spinning wheel I was cleaning up for my wife, and oh man, does it work. So, I've not heard of mixing beeswax with linseed oil. Linseed oil is another one of those oils that does cure, and it will eventually build up a finish, a uh, good finish like tongue oil does. Um, Tongue oil is it is 100%. Now, let me get into this here because there's a caveat with this. I'm talking 100% pure tongue oil. 100% pure tongue oil is food safe. Okay. And you got to make sure it says on the label again, hashtag not sponsored, 100% pure tongue oil. Okay. And this one says most surfaces will require 2 or more applications 12 hours apart. It's been my experience about 3 days to let it cure, and you'll need more than 2 covers, uh, more than 2 coats. Probably 3, maybe 4. I have gone up to 5. It just depends on what I'm oiling. But it gives the wood a nice, beautiful glow. Now, it's got to be 100% pure tongue oil if you want food safe. The words to watch out for is tongue oil finish. Tongue oil finish is not food safe. Tongue oil finish has other solvents, resins, varnishes in it that is never meant to be food grade. I would say about half of the tongue oil finishes out on the market don't even have any tongue oil in it. It's something else entirely. So if you want it food safe, 100% pure tongue oil. So, let's see here. Raw linseed oil is food safe, but boiled linseed oil is not. Boiled has chemicals added. Yes, I've heard that as well. And Russell Faraday confirms boiled linseed oil is very different to raw linseed oil. Boiled can be pure, but hard to find. I That's why I don't even try it. I just go ahead and get the 100% pure tung oil. It's a little bit pricey, but I love the finish. Um, if you just try it, if you make a little jewelry box for somebody, try a tung oil finish on that jewelry box. A hand rubbed oil finish. I wouldn't do anything big. You won't be doing an entertainment center with tung oil. But if you're making somebody a little jewelry box, or maybe you've carved a hand mirror that you're going to inset the mirror into, try a tung oil finish and see what you think. Go for 3 coats and adjust from there. You know, it really is something. It really is a good finish. Let's see here. Norm says you use double-sided tape and CA glue and tape on the same piece. Didn't that give you different heights? No, because I measured it. I checked it out. That was a test. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is right here. I tried a double-sided tape from a company called Hippie Crafter. Some folks call this hippie tape. And I wanted to experiment with it. And I thought there's no better way to experiment than to just try it with backup. So when I mounted the fence board to the sled, I did tape and CA on one side and then the hippie tape on the other side just to try it. And I don't like it. It has its place. But not for that, not for mounting material. One double-sided tape that I have found that I do like is, come here. It's called Intertape. It's from Intertape Polymer Group, IPG. I will look for a I will look for it and post a link in the description as soon as I'm done here. Full disclosure, it will be an Amazon affiliate link. So I do like this. It does work for some things. What I like to use this for is surfacing. If I've got I've got some walnut hardwood flooring here, I'll use this to mount it to the spoil board to surface, finish off, or remove the expansion grooves on the back. It works really good for that. But then I'm only taking about 20 thousandths of an inch of material off at a time. So I'm not putting a lot of stress on it. I'll use this because it's faster than the tape and CA glue. But I took some of that Hippie Crafter tape and got out my dial caliper and measured the thickness of that and 2 thicknesses of masking tape. And they were close enough to the same. They were a few thousandths different, but not enough to throw off the project, Norm. And because it didn't work, I didn't mention it in the video. I just wanted to check it and see how it would work, you know. So I didn't like it. I don't recommend it. It has its place though. For instance, I can take a piece of that and put it on the edge of a straight edge and then stick a piece of sandpaper to it if I'm sanding something where I got to get in and really do a little, you know, sanding on one corner or something like that. So Let's see here. 8 center has a long question. Let's see here. I need to cut a ring around a thick pendant, 11 millimeters thick, 50 millimeters wide. It will have about 23 millimeters of MDF stuck on the back of it, which I will use to plug into a hole. Okay. I need to cut around the middle of that edge with a 1/8 by 1 inch wide bit. Okay. Tips on sliding in from the side without cutting through the top like a keyhole, only it's a round keyhole, if that makes sense. Let me see here. Are you talking about a lead or cutting a ring around a thick pendant, 11 millimeters thick? Well, you can create a lead if that's what you're talking about. And let's get in here and play with a lead. I'll get rid of this, delete those vectors, and I'm going to go in and get into my sheets, and let's make this 12 by 12. Edit, 12 by 12. And okay. Now, 50 millimeters is roughly 2 inches, okay? So that's what I'll do. I will come up here and I'll draw a circle 2 inches in diameter. Let's go right here, try to keep it towards the center. Close, and we'll make sure it's in the center. It is. Okay. Now I want to cut this out. I've got a couple of ways I can do it. You're going to do this on a profile toolpath, correct? I'm asking. We want to cut to the outside. It doesn't matter what bit I'm using here because I'm sure the bit you're going to use will be different. But what we'll do is we will add ramps and leads. Okay. First, we'll go over here to the leads. And I'll want to do a circular lead. I don't need to do a 5-inch radius. Well, I don't even need to use a circular lead. I can use a straight line lead. And lead length, let's make it 3 inches just so you can see it clearer on the preview here. Then we'll also do a lead out with an overcut distance also of 3. Okay. Then we'll go into ramp and we'll do a smooth ramp, a distance of 1 inch. What was my lead? 3 inches. Okay. So the bit's going to ramp down into the material, but it's going to do it off of this vector. So when I calculate it, yes, I know it's going to cut through the material. You can see what this toolpath looks like. So if we go over here and look, what's going to happen is the toolpath is going to plunge down here and it's going to ramp in to the first depth for the first pass. Then it's going to come in and then cut. And then it's going to do that progressively. I've got a bunch of different passes here. That's way too much. Let's close that. Go back into it. 8 passes. There's no sense in that. Oh, I forgot I made my material 1/2 inch thick. So there's that. And let's edit the number of passes. Let's do it in 3 passes, just so we can see what it looks like. And we'll recalculate. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, and we'll preview that. So you see how that went. Maybe you didn't. Let me go back over here, reset it. I'll slow it down a little bit, not a lot. And we'll preview that again. You can see how it goes around and then comes away from the material. Then it'll come in, go around, and then come away from the material before retracting. It's only going to be 1 pass. Okay, all the better. We'll go in, we'll edit the passes, and we'll make it 1 pass. Okay, and now let's go here and calculate it. We'll kind of turn it around here so you can see what's going on and preview. And it still did it in 3 passes. I must not have. I thought I changed it. All right, stop. Reset. Let's go back into it. And okay, did I just hit close? Calculate. All right, 1 pass. So it's going to do its ramp here to get down to the full depth and then go around it. Is that what you were looking for? Something a little bit closer to that. And now we preview it. It's going to ramp down, go around it in 1 pass, and then come out away. I keep hitting that left click. If there is one thing that bugs me that I have not yet gotten used to about version 12, it is I still left click to move my 3D view. That is going to take forever for me to get used to. So long as the ramp distance is shorter than the lead distance, right? If you want that bit at full cutting depth before it gets to the vector, yes. Now, I have this set. What did I have this set at? I had my lead length set at 3 inches and my ramp length at 1. So let's go with 2 inches. And well, let's go with 2.5. Give it as much space as we can to get there. Then we'll calculate that and try that again. There we go. It's still going to come down in a zigzag pattern, but that's all right. And we'll preview that. That makes it easier on the bit. And then it'll come around and then go away from the part and then lift out. So, all right. So there's that. And back up to the top. I hope that answers that long question, but thank you for asking it. Let's go over here and take that, and that was all of it. All right. Gene Scott says, newbie here. If I set up the program in vCarve Desktop, if I need to change bits during the carve, will the program stop at the end of the first cut, allowing me to change bits, then press start with the new bit? That depends on how you set things up. Generally speaking, yes. But there's always a but. Let's go back. Let's turn on the vector here in the 3D view. Let's go back to this vector. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And let's see. I want to pocket this out. I want to V-carve this. Don't ask me why. I want to V-carve it. So I'm going to do a V-carve toolpath. Now, my start depth will be my material surface. I'm going to V-carve it to a flat depth of, let's say, it's a 1/2 inch thick piece of material. Let's go with 1/8 of an, no, let's go with 1/4 of an inch. Let's get daring, 0.25. Okay, I'm going to use a V-bit, 90-degree V-bit, and I'm going to use a clearance tool. I'm going to, no, I don't want to update my database just yet. Thank you very much for asking. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch end mill. And the 1/2 inch end mill is going to clear most of this out. And then my V-bit's going to go around the center. Okay. I'll do it offset because it is a circle. BBDB, I'll go conventional cut. I prefer the conventional cut. And now I'll calculate, and look what it does. It creates, I'm not sharing. Hello, sorry about that. Missed all of that. That was my fault. I wasn't sharing. Let's close this. Let's go back into the tool path. I have a 90-degree V-bit selected up here, and I chose a 1/2 inch end mill for my clearance tool. So the 1/2 inch end mill is going to hog most of this out, and then the V-bit's going to right around this vector and give me the nice V groove part. So come down here and I calculate the tool path, and it's created 2 separate tool paths. One, this one down here, uses the V-bit, the 90-degree V-bit. This tool path up here uses the 1/2 inch end mill. So when you go to save your G code, you might, depending upon how your post processor is set up, depending upon whether your machine will do it. What I do, just my preference, I'm a home hobbyist. I don't have an automatic tool changer. I can take the time. I save 2 separate G code files. So I always run my V-bit toolpath first. I don't know if you noticed that in today's video, but I always run the toolpath that uses the V-bit first. That way, if there are any, there won't be in this, but if there are any thin pieces that the V-bit is going to try to carve, it won't try to break off or chip out, shatter, and just disappear. The bit is going through solid material and it's going to outline my carve. I always get a better finish that way. So I'll use my V-bit toolpath first. I'll preview that. I could speed that up. And it carved out that area there. Now I need to clear the center. Completely different toolpath. So after this is done, your bit's going to come over to your home position, and that's when you change your bit, put in the new bit, set your Z0 for that bit, then come and load the G code for this one and run it. And there you go. So if you set it up right and you run the code right, yes. Now, if your post processor will allow you to export that as one G code file, you're going to have to get into your controller and make sure that when the tool change command comes up, number one, it's not ignored, and number two, that part of your system works. You're not going to try to change a bit with the spindle still running. And so you're getting into machine specifics there. And for that, I would reach out and talk to the machine manufacturer. But if you save this as two separate G-code files, and this is one reason why I do this. Again, I'm a home hobbyist. I can afford to take the time. But I might go ahead and do the V-bit portion of this carve first, then decide that's enough for today. I got to go grocery shopping or whatever. I'm just done in the shop. Then I can come out the next day and I can do this part here. I decide when I'm going to run what G-code. That's why I save separate G-code files. It takes it takes me longer to tell you that it only takes a few seconds to load a G-code file. It just took me longer to tell you that than it takes to actually do it. So I run separate G-code files, but I'm a minority in that. I know a lot of people don't like to do that. So, but I do. Okay, and then Gene Scott has another question. If I draw a straight line using the arc, the machine won't cut it. It says vector issue. How do I make it cut? Okay, that I don't get. First of all, what are you trying to cut? It depends on what you're trying to cut. For instance, let's reset that preview, get out of the preview screen. If I come over here into the 2D view, let's get rid of that, delete, and we'll draw an arc. And we'll go from, through 3 points. Okay, here's that. We'll go here, and then we'll go up to there. There's a good arc. Okay, close. Now, it depends on what I'm trying to do with this arc. There are only a few things I can do with it because it's an open vector. That's the main thing to remember. I can do a profile toolpath, but I can't do a pocket because a pocket requires a closed vector. I can't thread mill because that requires a closed vector. I can't drill. That requires a closed vector. Same with V-carve. Photo V-carve, that's not really appropriate. Sketch carve, not appropriate. I could use a fluting toolpath. That's about it. So there are some things you can do with an arc, but there are very few things you can do with an open vector. And that's the issue. So if you're trying to, for instance, do a profile toolpath, okay, you have 3 choices on how to cut this. And let's make it all the way through. You notice this black dot right here. That is new to version 12. Usually this would not be here. You will see this black dot on open vectors. That black dot is your start point. Okay. So the bit's going to start here and go this direction. That's important because do you want to cut to the outside right? Or do you want to cut to the inside or left of that vector? Or do you want to cut on that vector? Those are your 3 choices. Now, outside is for a closed vector. Let's say you have a circle here and you cut to the outside of the vector, it's going to cut outside of that vector and leave the circle behind of a specific size. If you cut inside of that vector, the bit's going to come to the inside, and this would be used if you want to cut the center out of an area and leave a hole of a specific size. If you cut on the vector, it's going to put the center of that bit right on top of that vector. So in my case, it would cut 1/8 over here and 1/8 over here. This comes in handy if you use a V-bit. You can trace a line on an open vector. And that's how you can quote unquote V-carve an open vector. You can put a V-bit in here, tell it how deep you want it to cut, say 1/16 of an inch. What would that be? That would be 1.5 millimeters. And that's how deep it'll cut. And you would go on the vector and it would trace that line into your material. Now, this is where the start point comes in. If you are cutting to the outside right of this vector, imagine standing on that point and looking in the direction that's going to go. On the outside, you are cutting to the right, so you would be cutting to this side of that vector. By the same token, inside left, imagine standing on that starting point and looking in the direction it's going to cut, you would be cutting to this side of the vector. That's how this works here. So if it's not letting you cut this arc at all, you must be trying to do something that requires a closed vector. If you're trying to pocket or drill or thread mill or V-carve with an open vector, it's not going to work. It won't let you do it. So I hope that answers that. Look at what you're trying to do, what you're trying to cut, and how you're trying to cut it, and then select the appropriate tool path for the vector you have, or draw another vector. Again, pocketing, drilling, thread milling, V-carving all require closed vectors. So, and on a closed vector, the start point and the end point are the same point. So, hope that helps. If that didn't answer your question, please let me know. But okay, does anybody have any other questions? Let me cruise up here and see. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. 8 Center says old axe trick too for linseed oil. Mix it with meths. See, methylated spirit. I believe that is what we call. I don't know if that's mineral spirits or not. See, I think white spirit, what you guys call white spirit, we call denatured alcohol. Meths, I'm not sure. And soak your handles in it. It soaks all the way into it. Amazing for preservation. Eats up a lot of oil, though. Yeah. On that subject, on that subject, Brooks might be interested in this. I don't know if you use it or not, but there is a food grade solvent for 100% tongue oil. And that is hashtag not sponsored. I'll put a link to this too. It's called Nature's Orange. 100% food grade limonene solvent. You can mix it up to 50-50 with tongue oil. And that will take care of that first saturation on a ingrain cutting board. But you said you didn't like using the tongue oil on the cutting board. But there is a food safe solvent for tongue oil if you want to get into it. I'll put a link to that as well. Let's see. Solvent. And the hopes. Tongue oil. Let's see here. Yeah, it's the purple alcohol stuff. That's meths. I thought that was white spirit. The purple alcohol stuff we call denatured alcohol. See, I get it backwards. So, denatured alcohol. Um, I didn't know you could thin uh, linseed oil with denatured alcohol. Hmm, okay. I never tried it. I don't use linseed oil a lot. I don't really like it. So, let's see here. I think it's a pain. I just don't like linseed oil. When you're thinning oil paints or stuff like that, most of those, just about all oil paints, now that I think about it, are linseed oil based. So for thinning uh, artist oil paints, you use linseed oil. Um, yeah, Jim Brown is asking what kind of wax do you use, beeswax or something else? Like I said, I like the Howard's Butcher Block conditioner, and it's beeswax and carnauba wax, which is edible. Dirty little secret, some candies, a little like jelly beans and things like that. I'm not going to use any brand names because I don't know that they do it or not, but some of them, they have a little bit of carnauba wax on them to make them look shiny and pretty. It is food grade. Um, so whatever. Okay, let's see. All right, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end this. We've been about an hour and a half. I wanted to say thank you to everybody, and I really appreciate every one of you. We are going to be getting back into, I can't promise weekly videos, but I'm going to get back into the schedule here and try to go for every other week. That gives me time to actually do a project and shoot the footage and everything. Because if I try to do a video a week, it's going to be weird. It's hard to do. So I've got a big, big, huge, uh, huge project, which will be the next video. I'm about half done with it, and hopefully we'll be able to have the other half done tomorrow, taking footage along the way, of course. And we'll see how that goes. Best laid plans of mice and men. You know how that goes? So probably won't be a video next week. It'll be the week after. Next week, we'll do some work in version 12 and get into a couple of their features. Not sure which yet, so watch for the announcement when I create the live stream. I think I'm going to play with one of the features they just added, one of the new features that I think is pretty cool. Channel members, slight change of scheduling. We had a special guest who was booked for tomorrow. He had to cancel at the last minute. Um, Everything's fine. He's fine. There's nothing wrong there. Just scheduling conflict. So we're going to try something else. I'm going to leave it a mystery, and we'll discuss it tomorrow evening. So looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or you would like some information on how to become a channel member so you can take part in these members only live streams, hit the little join button down there next to the subscribe button. A little panel will pop up and a video will play, and that's going to tell you about channel memberships. We have a great time. We really have a great time. And that's all it's going to do. It's just going to tell you about channel memberships. You're not committing to anything. Whew, I believe in choice. And I think that's it. So next week we'll work in version 12 a little bit. And big announcement, big project the week after. That's it. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. And hope to see you next week. Till then, y'all take care. Have a good day.